Homelessness in America has reached crisis levels, yet it remains one of the most ignored and misunderstood humanitarian disasters of our time. The sight of people sleeping on sidewalks, huddled in makeshift encampments, or wandering the streets with nowhere to go has become disturbingly common in major cities across the country. But despite the undeniable reality of this crisis, too many people have come to accept it as an unavoidable part of life in America. Instead of treating homelessness as a national emergency, policymakers often choose to look the other way, hoping the problem will somehow resolve itself. Cities pour money into temporary fixes, sweeping encampments, criminalizing street sleeping, and funding emergency shelters, while failing to address the root causes of homelessness in any meaningful way. The result? The problem continues to grow, placing an ever-increasing burden on public resources, straining law enforcement, overwhelming hospitals, and creating a cycle of suffering that seems impossible to break. But the true cost of ignoring homelessness extends far beyond financial strain. It is a moral and humanitarian failure that damages the very foundation of our society. To fully understand the cost of homelessness, we must first acknowledge the sheer scale of the crisis. On any given night, more than 500,000 people in the United States experience homelessness, but this number does not capture the full picture. The true number of people struggling with housing instability is far greater. Many individuals and families drift between motels, couch surf with friends, or stay in overcrowded shelters, making them invisible in official statistics. Others live in vehicles trying to maintain jobs or school attendance while lacking a permanent address. And then there are those who, due to fear, trauma, or distrust of the system, avoid shelters altogether and instead seek refuge in tents, underpasses, or abandoned buildings. This crisis is not limited to any one demographic. Veterans, families, elderly individuals, people with disabilities, domestic violence survivors, and even full-time workers are all being pushed into homelessness due to skyrocketing rents, stagnant wages, and a social safety net that is riddled with gaps. One of the greatest misconceptions about homelessness is that it is simply a result of bad choices or personal failures. In reality, the vast majority of people experiencing homelessness are there due to circumstances beyond their control. Economic hardship, sudden medical emergencies, loss of employment, mental illness, addiction, domestic violence, and a severe lack of affordable housing all play a role in pushing people to the brink. The United States has increasingly become a country where even a small financial setback, such as an unexpected hospital bill or car repair, can be enough to send someone spiraling into homelessness. The federal minimum wage has remained stagnant at $7.25 per hour for over a decade, yet housing costs have continued to skyrocket. In many major cities, a person working full-time at minimum wage would have to work 80 to 100 hours a week just to afford a modest one-bedroom apartment. When people can no longer afford to keep a roof over their heads, homelessness becomes inevitable. For those who do end up on the streets, life becomes a relentless battle for survival. Homelessness is not just about lacking a home. It is about facing constant danger, hunger, illness, and social rejection. People experiencing homelessness are at extreme risk of violence, assault, and exploitation. Many suffer from untreated medical conditions, infections, and exposure to harsh weather conditions. The average life expectancy for a homeless person in the U.S. is significantly lower than that of the general population, with many dying decades earlier than they would have if they had stable housing. Women and LGBTQ+ individuals face an even greater risk of violence and discrimination, making it even harder for them to find safe shelter. Meanwhile, homeless youth, many of whom have fled abusive homes, often end up victims of trafficking or crime. Ignoring homelessness does not make it disappear. It makes it worse. When homelessness is left unaddressed, it creates ripple effects that impact entire communities. One of the biggest hidden costs of homelessness is the immense financial burden it places on public systems. Emergency room visits, hospital stays, mental health crises, police interventions, and incarceration rates are all significantly higher among homeless populations. Studies have shown that chronically homeless individuals cost taxpayers tens of thousands of dollars each year in emergency services, yet solutions such as permanent supportive housing have been proven to reduce these costs dramatically. Cities that have invested in housing-first initiatives, where individuals are given stable housing before being required to address other issues, have seen their overall homelessness rates decline while reducing the financial burden on public services. When people have a safe place to live, they are better able to address their mental health needs, find employment, and reintegrate into society. Yet despite clear evidence that providing housing is not only more humane, but also more cost-effective, many cities continue to prioritize punitive approaches such as encampment sweeps, anti-loitering laws, and increased policing of homeless communities. Criminalizing homelessness is not a solution. It is a failure of leadership. Many cities have implemented laws that make it illegal to sleep in public spaces, camp on sidewalks, or even sit for extended periods in certain areas. The goal of these laws is often to push homelessness out of sight rather than actually solve the problem. But forcing people to move from one location to another does nothing to address their lack of housing, and in many cases, it makes their situation even worse. People who are fined for sleeping in public often cannot pay the fines, leading to arrest warrants and criminal records that make it even harder for them to secure employment or housing. The cycle of criminalization creates a revolving door between the streets and the justice system, further entrenching homelessness and wasting valuable resources that could be used for real solutions. Beyond the immediate financial and logistical costs, there is a deeper moral cost to ignoring homelessness. A society that allows large portions of its population to suffer in plain sight without meaningful intervention is one that has lost its sense of compassion and justice. The normalization of homelessness erodes the very fabric of communities, creating divisions between those who have stable housing and those who do not. When people step over or ignore someone sleeping on the street, it sends a clear message. Some lives are valued, while others are disposable. The failure to address homelessness is not just a policy issue. It is a reflection of how a nation treats its most vulnerable citizens. If we continue to look the other way, the problem will not only persist but will grow even larger. There are solutions to homelessness, but they require a fundamental shift in how we approach the issue. Instead of treating homelessness as a law enforcement problem, it must be treated as a housing and public health crisis. Policies that prioritize affordable housing development, rental assistance programs, mental health services, and substance abuse treatment can drastically reduce homelessness over time. Countries like Finland have virtually eliminated chronic homelessness by implementing housing-first policies, yet in the United States, there is still resistance to such approaches due to political polarization, misconceptions about the causes of homelessness, and a lack of federal coordination. The reality is that investing in long-term solutions will ultimately save money and lives. It is not a matter of whether we can afford to address homelessness. It is a matter of whether we can afford not to. The cost of ignoring homelessness is measured not just in dollars, but in human lives, in lost potential, in fractured communities, and in the erosion of our collective humanity. Every day that we fail to act, the crisis deepens. Every life lost to exposure, violence, or despair is a testament to the failures of a system that prioritizes short-term convenience over lasting solutions. The question is not whether homelessness can be solved, it is whether we have the will to solve it. The time for half measures and excuses has long passed. The time for real, meaningful action is now.